Right then, today I'm gonna do a little video about the pampas grasses I'm growing at the moment. You see, not doing too bad. They normally take about 3 to 4 years to mature, to get to the size that most people have seen pampas grasses. The sharp, razory leaves, the tall flowers from the centre and whatnot. These are what they look like in the first year of their growth. Like I said, it normally takes about 3 to 4 years for them to mature. Now, the reason I'm making this video is not so much for how to grow them yourself, more than setting people straight on a lot of the confusion that people tend to get when it comes to making their gardens. It's like this. Pampas grasses are labelled as an ornamental plant. They don't produce pollen, so they're not very good for pollinators like bees. But people think that means that they're useless, that there's no point having them in the garden because they don't do any good for nature. But they'd be wrong, because pampas grasses, believe it or not, may not be good for pollinators like bees, but they're amazing for wildlife, especially hedgehogs, because hedgehogs can live under pampas grasses safely. Most animals can't actually get under the plant because the leaves, obviously, when they develop and they're fully mature, the leaves go razory. So anything trying to get under there will often get shredded to pieces trying to get under there. But hedgehogs, having their natural spiky back protection, can get under there with unharmed, live under there just fine, and know they'll be safe the whole time. Because they'll be able to have have families, be safe the whole time, raise their families in safety, knowing nothing is going to harm them. Because they're the only things that, aside from insects, that can actually get under there without getting hurt. So ornamental plants like these may not be good for pollinators, but they're wonderful for wildlife. And that's something I would like, something I wanted to make people aware of before they decided to chop down their pampas grass. Because there's a lot of misinformation out there that telling people that these things are no good, when in fact they are. They do more than people give them credit for. Just because they're not very good for the obvious, that doesn't mean they don't have a good purpose. These, like I said, they tend to take 3 to 4 years to mature properly. My ones here, they haven't got their razory leaves yet. They still feel a lot like grass, but there's also, the texture on them is also different enough for you to feel that they're not actually proper grass, because you can feel the roughness already developing on them, but it's not sharp enough for them to harm you yet. For them to get to that stage, it'll take about 3 years, and then for, average of 3 to 4, like I said, before they flower. But they're actually really easy to grow yourself. If you've got a pampas grass and want to grow your own, all you do is take the flower, once they produce their seeds, chop the flower off the top, sprinkle it on some dirt. They're really not picky. They're not picky plants when it comes to compost. When it comes to soil for you to grow them in, they're really not picky at all. So far, these ones that I've grown, I've grown them, the seeds, in 2 different types of soil so far. One, I've used Westland multi-purpose compost. Most of my plants, out of all the compost I've used, they all seem to love it. I don't know why, they just love that Westland compost. The Miracle Grow is also good, but the pampas grasses don't mind it. But a lot of flowers, they either love it or they hate it. They'll either grow or they won't. But everyone I've used so far loves this Westland. My ones took just over a week to sprout in the Westland multi-purpose compost. But I also put a load in peat moss, just normal peat moss, nothing else. They took a few weeks, they took close to a month to sprout, but they still sprouted, all of them, which I thought was wonderful. So they're really not picky, depending on the type of soil you use. Say, is depending on how long they'll take to sprout, but they're really not picky when it comes to the type of compost you use to germinate their seeds. Like I said, normal multi-purpose, a week to 2, just normal peat moss with nothing else, 3 to 4 weeks. It was after about 3, into 4 weeks, not quite 4 weeks before the first one started sprouting, and then after 4 weeks hit, they were all sprouting. So they're really not picky on soil composition. When it comes to, they do grow quite quickly, especially in the spring and summertime when you're you're feeding them stuff like Miracle Grow. They go ballistic. They're very quick and determined plants, but they're not very picky. They're quite easy to grow, actually. But most people obviously don't try because they're under the misconception that they don't really benefit your garden, and it's not, just because they can be high maintenance to look after because they're hard to cut back without shredding yourself if you haven't got the right protection. But waterproofs, put some waterproof jacket, trousers, and some pretty decent gardening gloves on, and for the most part you'll be fine. They won't stick to you. Then you can get close enough to hack them down in comfort. And easier to look after than they give them credit for. And they're not picky at all. They do love the sun, so they will need to be planted in a place where they can get loads of sunlight, and they'll have to be planted in a place where they can get sunlight all throughout the day and all around the whole of the plant. So if you plant them in an area where one half gets sun and the other half doesn't, then one half's going to grow beautifully and the other half's going to look half dead. So keep that in mind. They love sun, and they want the whole plant. They want it, the whole of it to get sun all day through. But other than that, in the winter time, they're not really bothered. Not really that bothered. It's like I've got some out the back right now. They'll hibernate in the winter, but they're not really bothered. They won't die. They won't really die off more than just stop growing until it starts warming up. So got nothing to worry about there. They're, like I said, very easy to look after, and they offer more benefit to nature than they're given credit for. So next time you think about chopping down your pampas grass, think that the hedgehogs might love them just the way they are. And there's plenty of things that you can do to encourage hedgehogs to live under your pampas grasses, like providing, food for them. And you don't need to fork out a ton of money to build hedgehog homes when you've got pampas grass. Just the pampas grass, and they tend to live on average about 15 years. So it's 15 years, say about 10, 11 years of a secure home for the hedgehogs, as long as there's food in the area for them. So feel free to leave comments on this video, and if you have any requests for videos that you want added to my channel for different flowers, information you might want, feel free to make requests. I'm more than happy to try my hand at growing them and giving the information that I learn from growing them to help you all out. It's like I've been growing these indoors because I haven't got we've got a shared a community garden, so it's like shared between all the people in our block, because I live in a flat. So I've turned my bedroom into a grow room of sorts, growing flowers indoors. it's like you'll buy seeds in shops and whatnot, and they recommend that you'll grow them outside, but it's absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. You can grow anything indoors, and indoors and outdoors. It's you know, it's all you need is dedication. It's like I tried my hand at foxgloves back at the beginning, towards the beginning of this year. Recommended they grown outdoors. Grew just fine indoors. They were just a little bit more demanding, requiring a lot of attention, checking up on them multiple times a day, watering them more regularly, but they grew just fine. As long as you're dedicated enough, you can grow anything indoors or outdoors, regardless of what people recommend. You know, all you need to grow things indoors is a grow light. It's like I got a load of these grow lights that I bought off Amazon. It's like I got loads of them, and they're all energy savers, and they're all energy saving light bulbs as well. All energy saving grow lights, produce very little heat, use up very little electric, and that's all you really need. A grow light, somewhere to put the plants, and yeah, you're away. A little bit of compost, some pots, and you're sorted. So I hope you find these videos useful and that they will help you with your own attempts to develop your garden. Hey, thank you for listening.